Before the suits, the laughter, and the massive television audience, there was just a boy with a dream scribbled on a small piece of paper. Steve Harvey was born in 1957 in Welch, a quiet coal town where life was simple and expectations were modest. His father, Jesse Harvey, worked long days as a coal miner, earning just enough to keep the family afloat. His mother, Eloise Harvey, was a Sunday school teacher who filled their home with faith and discipline. When Steve was a child, his class was asked to write down what they wanted to become someday. While others chose practical careers, he wrote something bold. "I want to be on TV." The reaction from his teacher was discouraging, but when he showed the paper to his father, Jesse simply told him to keep it and look at it every day. That quiet encouragement planted a seed that would guide Steve through decades of struggle and uncertainty. The boy who could barely speak? What many people don't know is that the man famous for his quick wit once struggled to speak at all. As a child, Steve Harvey had a severe stutter that made even simple conversations difficult. Words would stick in his throat, and sentences felt like obstacles he had to climb over. At school, this made him painfully shy. While other kids spoke easily, Steve often stayed quiet, observing everything around him. That silence, though difficult, taught him something valuable. He learned how to read people, their expressions, gestures, and emotions. These observation skills later became the foundation of his comedy. Eventually, with patience and practice, he learned techniques to slow his speech and breathe through the words. Over time, the stutter faded, but the lessons remained. What once felt like a weakness had quietly shaped the future comedian's greatest strength. His ability to understand people deeply and turn everyday life into relatable humor. Searching for direction. After high school, Steve's path was anything but clear. He attended Kent State University for a short time, but eventually left without finishing his degree. Like many young adults trying to figure out life, he moved through different jobs, working on an assembly line at Ford Motor Company, selling insurance, delivering mail, and even installing carpets. None of it felt like the right fit. Friends and coworkers knew him as the funny guy who could make an entire room laugh during a break, but comedy still seemed like a distant possibility rather than a real career. By his late 20s, Steve was married with children and carrying the heavy pressure of supporting a family. On the outside, life looked stable, but internally he felt restless. Something inside him kept reminding him of the dream he had written as a child. The problem was simple and terrifying. Chasing that dream meant risking everything he had built. The first step onto the stage. The turning point came from a simple suggestion. A friend encouraged Steve to try stand-up comedy at a local club in Cleveland. He had never performed professionally and had no formal training. Still, curiosity and courage pushed him forward. One night he walked into Hilarity's Comedy Club and signed up for amateur night. Standing under the bright lights, microphone in hand, he felt nervous but strangely calm. Something unexpected happened when he began speaking. The rhythm of storytelling and laughter seemed to dissolve the fear that had once made speaking difficult. The audience responded warmly, and for the first time, Steve felt the thrill of performing. Winning that amateur night gave him a glimpse of what might be possible. Soon afterward, he made a bold decision. He left his job and committed himself to comedy. It was a leap of faith, one that brought excitement, but also serious challenges. The years of hard lessons. The early days of stand-up were far from glamorous. Comedy gigs were unpredictable and often poorly paid. Sometimes Steve would drive long distances for a small performance fee, unsure if the next opportunity would appear. Financial pressure placed strain on his family life, and eventually his marriage ended. Those were deeply difficult years. At times he slept in his car while traveling between comedy shows, relying on determination and hope to keep going. Yet even during those uncertain nights, he refused to abandon the dream. Each performance became a learning experience. He refined his storytelling, sharpened his observations, and built the stage presence that audiences would later recognize worldwide. What kept him moving forward was the belief that every comedian must earn their place through persistence. The road was demanding, but it also forged resilience that would define his career for decades to come. The breakthrough moment. After years of performing in clubs across the country, Steve finally received an opportunity that changed everything. In the early 1990s, he appeared on Showtime at the Apollo, at the legendary Apollo Theater. The Apollo audience was famous for its honesty. If a performer failed to impress, the crowd made it clear. But Steve walked on stage with confidence built from years of hard work. His humor, energy, and ability to connect with the crowd won them over. That performance led to him becoming the host of the show, giving him national exposure and steady work. For the first time, the dream he had written down as a child felt truly within reach. The visibility from the Apollo stage opened doors to television opportunities and allowed him to build a broader fan base. It was the moment when the struggling comedian began transforming into a recognized entertainer. Comedy becomes an empire. By the late 1990s, Steve Harvey had become one of the most recognizable voices in comedy. His television sitcom, The Steve Harvey Show, introduced him to millions of viewers and showcased his comedic style. Around the same time, he joined fellow comedians Cedric the Entertainer, Bernie Mac, and D.L. Hewley for the groundbreaking The Kings of Comedy tour. Instead of performing in small clubs, they filled large arenas, proving that comedy could draw massive audiences. When filmmaker Spike Lee turned the tour into the documentary The Original Kings of Comedy, the performances became part of comedy history. Steve's role as host and storyteller helped unify the show's energy. The tour's success elevated him from popular comedian to cultural icon, showing that humor rooted in everyday life could resonate with audiences across the country. Reinvention through new platforms. Many entertainers struggle to stay relevant after their first wave of success, but Steve Harvey chose to reinvent himself. In the early 2000s, he launched The Steve Harvey Morning Show, where his personality and humor reached listeners during their daily routines. The radio program revealed another side of him, thoughtful conversations about life, relationships, and faith. This led to the best-selling book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man, in 2009, which connected with readers around the world. Soon after, he accepted the hosting role on the classic game show Family Feud. Instead of following the traditional format, Steve brought spontaneous humor and genuine reactions to contestants' answers. His expressive facial reactions and playful commentary quickly went viral online, introducing him to a younger generation and making the show more popular than it had been in years. The philosophy of the jump, one of Steve Harvey's most widely shared messages, is what he calls the jump. In a viral motivational talk, he explained that people often stay in safe situations because they fear the uncertainty of change. According to Steve, Growth begins when someone is willing to take a leap of faith toward their purpose. His own decision to pursue comedy in the 1980s became the example behind this philosophy. Today, he shares this message through speaking engagements and through initiatives like the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation, which mentors young people and provides educational opportunities. The idea is simple but powerful. Dreams require courage, patience, and persistence. Success rarely happens overnight, but those who stay committed to their goals often discover opportunities they never expected. A legacy built on resilience. Looking back at the life of Steve Harvey, it becomes clear that his success is not simply the result of talent. It is the product of resilience, faith, and an unwavering belief in possibility. From a child in Welch with a speech challenge to a global television host and entrepreneur, his journey reflects the power of perseverance. Today, he continues hosting shows, speaking to audiences around the world, and mentoring the next generation. His story reminds people that difficult beginnings do not determine the final outcome. Sometimes the very struggles that seem like obstacles become the experiences that prepare someone for greatness. Steve Harvey's journey encourages anyone with a dream, no matter how distant it may seem, to keep working, keep believing, and never stop pursuing the life they once imagined.